So in my view, Erdogan decided to scare Assad back to the negotiating table. And for that, he greenlit a rebel assault onto Aleppo. The assault worked out to be too good for its own sake. My name is Soner Cagaptay, and I'm a Beyer Family Fellow and Director of Turkish Research Program at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. For a while, it looked like Assad regime had won Syria's civil war. The regime had consolidated its power over significant parts of Syrian society, and more importantly, Assad regime was being welcomed back to the international community. A number of European and Arab countries had opened up their embassies in Damascus, and Assad was under the misperception that he was going to survive. And he didn't really need to talk to Turkey, a party that had taken part in Syria's civil war, to end the war and the conflict. From Turkey's perspective, President Erdogan has been wanting to negotiate an end to the war in Syria. That included Assad taking some refugees back, and also Turkey and Syria declaring that the conflict was over. Assad didn't feel like he had to agree to Erdogan's terms. He felt like he was winning the war, so why bother? I think that Turkey maybe felt that it's the rebels that it back could take Aleppo. The rebels not only succeeded in taking Aleppo, but in as few as less than 2 weeks, the rebels took all 4 of Syria's big cities. But perhaps even Ankara did not anticipate the very speedy fall of Damascus into the hands of the rebels in less than 2 weeks. What does that tell us about the nature of the regime before it fell? It had turned into a paper tiger, or rather, because the Israelis had been so successful in decimating Hezbollah, the regime was now missing crucial Hezbollah militia support, and because Russia's air force was tied in Ukraine, it was also missing Russian air force support. The HTS is an indigenous Syrian force. It has some ties with radicals. Obviously, this is not a force that is subservient to Turkey, but I think it will listen to Ankara, because the attack on Aleppo and other cities could not have been successful without Turkish support. Turkey, I think, definitely backed the rebels, and therefore that puts Turkey in a very influential position. Turkey was, at least in the beginning, not comfortable in declaring its kind of connections to HTS or talking about it. That's because while victory has 1,000 fathers, failure is an orphan, and Turkey did not want to own an orphan. But I think once it became clear that the HTS attack was proceeding towards Damascus, Ankara became more public about its support to the group. And not surprisingly, the first visit to Damascus after the fall of the Assad regime by a foreign politician or bureaucrat was by the head of Turkey's intelligence agency, Ibrahim Kalın. And Turkey was the first country to open its embassy in Damascus after the fall of the Assad regime. This was followed by the opening of the Qatari embassies. Going forward, I think Qatar and Turkey are going to try to hold HTS's hands. Qatar is going to bring money. Turkey is going to bring its century-old seasoned institutions, and the two of them will together try to patch Syria up together. The burden of refugees on Turkish politics, the pressures that this has been creating against President Erdogan, will be alleviated if you see a significant or large number of return of refugees to Syria. Turkey's government officials have already said that, Syrians are welcome to go back, but there's no pressure. I think everyone knows that, number one, it's winter months in Syria, and no one wants to move and at the cold of the winter. Northern Syria can get very cold. I think a lot of refugees, even if those who want to go back, are going to want to see if Syria is normalizing first, right? They want to see that it's not falling apart, it's not spitting into disarray, a civil war. So I would say that we'll probably see a trickling of refugees returning from Turkey into Syria. There's a very large group of refugees in Turkey, almost 4 million Syrians, constituting a nearly 5% addition to Turkey's population of 84 million people. There are very powerful anti-refugee sentiments in Turkey and political movements. So I think Erdogan would benefit from the repatriation of some of the Syrians. I don't think all will return, but significant numbers could. But they'll wait until at least spring and summer months when movement of people becomes more feasible. So in the context of Turkish-Syrian ties, I think what happened in Syria is a revolution. Following the fall of the Ottoman Empire, modern Turkey and Syria emerged as two neighboring states. But Syria was Turkey's most problematic neighbor for about 100 years. During the Cold War and at the end of World War II, Syria at the time resented close Turkish-Israeli ties. Turkey and Syria came to the brink of war in 1958. Then with the establishment of the Ba'athist regime, a socialist government in Damascus in the 60s, Turkey and Syria fell at the opposing ends of the Cold War. The relationship did not improve at the end of the Cold War. Syria supported Kurdistan Workers' Party, a terror group that carried out attacks against Turkey. The Turkish-Syrian border is very long, 500 miles, and almost for its entire length lacks physical barrier, so it's very porous. With the Arab uprisings in Syria, Erdogan started to support anti-Assad rebels who used the porous nature of the border this time to carry out attacks into Syria from Turkey. Erdogan almost killed Assad. He supported rebels who tried to oust the Assad regime, and you could therefore argue that Assad hates Turkey and hates Erdogan. Turkey has not only managed to oust Assad, but also has become the most significant player in Damascus. Syria goes from being the most problematic neighbor to a potential ally over which Ankara has significant clout. Turkey will not only back HTS, because Erdogan is invested in HTS's success, right? If the Syrian model with HTS fails, that will create instability, flow of refugees, and chaos, which will impact Turkey negatively. But also, Turkey has said that it will support Damascus and the new government there going forward, including by providing with military assistance. So what a revolutionary change. The most hostile and problematic neighbor now becomes probably Turkey's closest ally in the neighborhood.